My guest tonight began his professional career by creating the haunting precog dream sequences for Steven Spielberg's Minority Report. He went on to direct the heist film Lies and Alibis, followed by several commercial campaigns for brands like Ford, Gap, and Red Bull. He recently helmed The Hidden World, the virtual reality film for Universal Pictures and DreamWorks that features the cast and characters from the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. His latest feat is a documentary feature film called Stuntman, which was executive produced by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. It depicts the harrowing story of stuntman Eddie Braun as he attempts to recreate the infamous Snake River Canyon jump that ended the career of his childhood hero, Evel Knievel. Stuntman has won the Audience Award for Best Documentary Feature Film at the Los Angeles Film Festival and is set for release on Disney Plus July 23rd. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to my guest tonight, director Kurt Mattila. Hey!
Hey, hello, sir.
How are you doing, man?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, man, you have no idea how excited I am. First, you look fantastic. I mean, obviously, the pandemic did you wonders. I mean, you look great, man.
You should have seen me last week. It's a whole other story. Things can turn around quickly, you know?
Hey, you put the effort in, man. Put the effort in. It works. Okay, so, oh, my God. So, my head's spinning because I have so much that I want to ask you and so much that I want to talk to you about. First and foremost, right out the gate, I always like, I told you during the break that this is a, military veteran, the military veteran audience. Our civilian audience is building up. We're appreciative. I always like to ask my guests right out the gate, do you have a military connection? Either you served, a family member served, a close friend, or just even if you're just a big old supporter of the military, what's your connection?
Oh, what's my connection? Well, first of all, my grandfather was in the Air Force during World War II, and he wasn't flying planes, but he was fixing the radios on them. Apparently, you need radio contact while you're in the air, so he was responsible for that. My father wound up was in the Army Reserves, and he retired as a lieutenant colonel. So he was there for a while. And then, as a matter of fact, my parents met at the VA hospital in Boston. So when I think about it, my mom was like a real cool hippie Boston party chick, and my dad was a very socially awkward guy. So there's no way they would have met in real life in naturally occurring situations. They'd have to meet at work. So my connection to the military primarily is I wouldn't be here, if it wasn't for the VA hospital. Our nation wouldn't be here, obviously, but then I personally also would not be here. So I have a lot to say. Thank you for your service, and thank you for everyone before you.
Oh, man, that's awesome, man. There's no better connection to the military than, I literally wouldn't be here if not for the military.
Parents met at the hospital, VA hospital. Never would have happened outside of that situation.
Yeah, that's so awesome. That's the reason I always ask is because even if it's as simple as, I know a guy it's like a lot of times veterans out there feel very disconnected from the civilian counterparts. And so I always like to say, like, look at how connected we all are. Like, whether you served, whether your family served, whether somebody a guy you went to high school with served, like there is always that connection. So it's awesome. Let's see what else. A lot of people are very excited you're here, by the way. Everybody's saying hi in the audience. So if
hello, everybody.
You want to give a quick hello, there you go. Everybody, you've been heard. We got you.
Okay.
And if you guys have questions for Kurt, throw them in the chats. We will get to them. But as always, I like to ask my questions first. It's only fair. It's my show.
It's your show, man.
Okay, so obviously I want to talk all about Stuntman. I got to see the movie. I saw it last night. Unfortunately, everybody's got to wait till July 23rd on Disney Plus, right? But before we get into Stuntman, I like to know the man behind the work that we're here to promote. So a little bit about you. You're obviously, you're a film director. You've directed commercials. You have a litany of work, sir. I saw it. You video editing and writing and producing. You're all over the place. So I'm curious to understand the things that I can't search, that I can't IMDb, I can't wiki you. Is how'd you get into this? What got you on the path to where you're at now?
Oh, well, thanks for asking. First of all, I just want to let you know that you are the first person outside the circle of trust who's seen Stuntman. So, in a weird way, the fact that you're jumping up and down and raising your arms, that's a dang good sign that we might be onto something. So, I'm thrilled that you saw it, and we'll have a much more interesting conversation. I won't have to dance around like, did you see it? You didn't. Sometimes folks say they did, but they didn't.
Oh no, I saw.
But going back to I went to art school to become a film director. I went to the Rhode Island School of Design, and I've always wanted to be a director. And I met some wonderful people there. I met my closest, longest brothers, Mike DiMartino and Brian Konietzko. They went on to make Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra. They were always in animation while I was in live action. I remember thinking like, "Oh, those cartoons will get you nowhere, boys. Come on, you gotta get where the live action is." So we all moved out here together to California, and it is. You need your group no matter where you are. You're landing in, alone, having to meet people from boots on the ground. Like, it's not going to work. You need that core group to go out with you. So I was very fortunate to have my friends here with me. And I started my career working at a company called Imaginary Forces. They did title sequences and commercials and all sorts of stuff like that. And the weird thing that wound up happening, CQ, it was a weird backdoor channel into the movie business. Within months of me moving here, I get the call like, hey, so Ridley Scott's coming by today, and you're going to have to edit the trailer for G.I. Jane in a very small editing room. And I was like, okay, I didn't train for this. I don't know I don't know how to, this man made Blade Runner and Alien. I'm like a giant fan. So I had to learn very quickly to be like, hey, good to see you, sir. Let's get started on this trailer for G.I. Jane. It's called a kick. So I had, but what was interesting is I got to sort of glom from these filmmakers who would come in and talk about their process and stuff. So I had this weird graduate film school where everyone that came in, I got to learn from. I did a title sequence for this film called Donnie Brasco. So I got to talk to that director. Oliver Stone came by a couple times. And all this sort of built towards what you mentioned in that beautiful intro. I was like, man, I think that's me. Steven Spielberg hired me in a group to work on Minority Report, and that was sort of the real big foray into motion graphics and visual effects and so on and so forth. And that was an experience I still don't believe it happened. I think it was like the first documented case of imposter syndrome because I was on set with these guys, and it was just fantastic. And after Minority Report, we wound up my couple creative partners and I wound up making a film, and then I kind of branched off to make a bunch of commercials, and they were really dumb, innocuous commercials. Like, I was happy to work, but they were like, cough syrup and soap and hey, who likes cereal? But then one day I finally got the big holy grail of commercials. I landed a car campaign, and that's like striking it rich. And well, not really, but gold, striking gold. And I'll never forget. I'm there. I have no idea how to make a car commercial. I'm doing all this research, and my assistant director came in and said, "Hey, you're going to need a stunt driver for these cars. They don't drive themselves. You're going to have a guy he's like the actor. He makes the car move." I'm like, oh, okay. And he goes, "Do you want to audition anybody, or do you want me to just bring in someone I know, this guy, Eddie Braun?" I'm like, yeah, just bring him in. We'll hire him. And that moment changed my life. Forever, because that's how I met Eddie, who's the subject of my documentary, Stuntman. And we just, one of those weird happenstance. And, we hit it off. And during the course of that, we started talking about the movie, and the rest is still current history. It's still going. It's
still happening. Still happening.
Yeah.
A couple more before we get into Stuntman. You're somebody that you've dabbled in. I saw some TV work. Dabbled in, you're doing the directing. You've done the visual editing and visual effects, and so. Given you now have a kind of a wealth of knowledge, you have, a huge toolbox to work from. In your opinion, as a film director, for regardless of what you're directing, what is the most important quality? What is it that a good film director or director, I should say, brings to the project?
That is a great question. I think the most important quality is being okay that if you don't have all the answers. Obviously there are certain situations where directors have an absolute vision of a film and they're like, nothing's going to get in the way. And I don't want to hear anyone's opinions. I don't want to, I just have this super, vision but that's not necessarily the case, because once you get into the world and on a set, suddenly all these factors start weighing in and you start going, oh, well, that shot looks better than the storyboard I drew. What then you start to become this collaborative thing. And what I learned from Spielberg is, on the set of Minority Report, here's the man who made Jaws. Here's the man who made Schindler's List, Indiana Jones. He knows what he's doing. And after the first shot of the day, he just went, okay, what do you think? Should we do this now? Like he listens to people's ideas. And I realized, oh, a good filmmaker quality is collaboration and taking input from other people who you trust. And if anyone is listening is like, I want to be that, that's the biggest thing. Like, now, obviously, sometimes you bring in people who aren't the best fit and their ideas aren't helping, but more often than not, you work that out in casting. It's almost like going on a date. You kind of go, oh, what are your points of reference? What's your thing like? And then you kind of go, oh, you know what? I think we can work together. And hopefully that you've chosen the right crew. And man, when they have a suggestion, it's probably better than the one that you have. So collaboration and keeping an open mind, I have personally found to be the most quality to have on these situations.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Apparently I'm getting told like the Facebook live version it's a little glitchy. I apologize, guys. That's on Facebook and we can't control that on our end. We're good on our end. Maybe switch to YouTube, maybe switch to Twitter. I don't know. Sorry. So outside of that, so I read that your love for filmmaking is rivaled only by your passion for comic books, which, in case you haven't noticed, it's kind of something I'm excited about here as well. So being that you're a comic lover, being that you're a person, and that you're also a person in the entertainment industry, I'd love to get your sense, your feeling on the pulse of superheroes in film and TV. Right, we're in a golden age of just a plethora of superhero content. Do you feel we're in a good place? Do you feel it's going to get better? Do you feel it's oversaturated? You're the film guy, man. Tell me the layman. What do you think?
Well, hey, I've heard your show. You're not a layman. You're very well versed. So let's start with that. CQ. CQ, incidentally, a very good Roman Coppola movie. I don't know if you ever saw it or not, but it's pretty good. So as a filmmaker and a huge comic book fan, the one thing that the first reaction I have to all these things is like, oh, they're good, because growing up, we had the Hulk TV show was okay, but then there was all these missteps in the early 90s, and it was this strange thing where we, the nerds, weren't calling the shots. It was the sort of studio executives who really could not know the difference between Superman and Batman, and it's documented that they didn't. They were trying to do films where does he have to wear the mask? Does he have to wear the cape? So we got out of that sort of dark age, and from Iron Man 1 onward, it's just been oh my goodness. And I see the shield behind you. One of my favorite characters is Captain America. And when I heard the premise that it was going to take place during World War II, I'm like, oh my goodness, they're okay. So I definitely has this anxiety of, I suppose other filmmakers have too, I better get in there. I better pitch. They can't do this without me. And then I'm just sort of okay, they got it. They're good. And then, man, when it came to that culmination of that first Avengers film, CQ, I couldn't believe what I was watching. And it was good. And they keep one-upping themselves, just when now we're at a point where it's like the spin rack, the old spin rack growing up. It's there's so much stuff on streamers, maybe the CW Flash isn't for you. Well, just pick out WandaVision. Now you have a choice because there's so much, and you may not like it all, but you're going to like some of it. I think we're also not at this alleged tipping point. I was like, oh, it's good. It's oversaturated. It's going to say, no, it's like the Western. If that's anything to learn, we got another 20 years of this, guys. And you know what? That's okay. That is okay by me. But I'll never forget, I went to the San Diego Comic-Con a lot, being here in Los Angeles. And, the first few years, I started going in the late 90s. We'd be happy if the guy who played Boba Fett showed up, like Jeremy Bullock. Like that was like a big deal. And I think it was 2001-ish, right around X-Men 2, where all of a sudden Bryan Singer shows to promote X-Men 2. Ben Affleck shows up to promote Daredevil. Ang Lee's there for Hulk. And we're like, what is happening? Then Arnold Schwarzenegger comes in to talk about Terminator 3. None of that happened before that point. And so that's sort of like, I think, where the Big Bang started. Then from that point onward, it became
mainstream. It became every day, if you hadn't been to a Comic-Con, you didn't know what a Comic-Con was. And that's very different now. You don't have to have ever been there.
Experience.
Yes, absolutely. And last kind of pop culture question: you've worked on some major pop culture staples. I mean, Minority Report. You had a hand in Tron, Avatar, the anime, not the the other Avatar. Iron Man, Hulk in the MCU. I mean, I saw Tropic Thunder was on your resume. I mean, for you, what's been? I mean, you talked about the Steven Spielberg moment, but like, what's been that like, whoa, I can't believe I'm here doing this right now kind of moment?
Oh yeah, I think so. I worked on Iron Man 1. I did a very small sequence at the very beginning of the movie. He's getting an award in Vegas, and they do a little tribute film for him. So I wrote and produced a little tribute film for him because I knew a lot about Tony Stark, and like I helped design all like the Rolling Stone covers and all that kind of stuff. And I just sort of had this moment I was like, Iron Man's gonna be in a movie. Like, this is Tony Stark and I getting to just touch a small piece of it was beyond thrilling. And I wound up meeting Kevin Feige briefly during the second Hulk movie, the Louis Leterrier one, where Ed Norton won. And that was kind of a bumpy road for a movie, but it had the first real good slugfest. The Abomination, the Hulk. It was the first time we saw a slugfest. I worked on I put together the opening sequence, which told the Hulk's origin story in 2.5 minutes. I was very happy to be like, some films don't need an origin story. You just did 2.5 minutes. There's an accident. It goes wrong. He's the Hulk. Let's move on. But I remember talking to, like I said, I met Kevin Feige, and at that time I was like, so I know you got the Captain America movie coming out. In the comics at that point in time, Bucky had inherited the mantle because Steve Rogers died right at the end of Civil War. So I was like, and I started to get suspicious. Like, are they moving? Is the comics going to reflect the film? I remember saying, like, is Bucky going to be Cap? Because they hadn't cast him yet. And he actually said, maybe in the third movie. And this was like so early. I'm like, that's the first time I got the sense that like they're thinking 3 to 5 years in advance. And I remember just thinking, like, calling my fellow nerds and stuff, like, guys, it's going to be okay. We're going to be okay. We're in good hands. The days of weird Daredevil and Ghost Rider are over. We're going to be okay. And that was another sort of pinch me moment. I think
that's so cool to be. You were there. You're literally there at the ground floor, the beginning of the beginning. And it's so funny. I don't say this to blow smoke, but like I clearly remember the little montage that they do for Iron Man in the first one. Like it's visually captivating. So whatever it is you did, like it's still in like, dude, what are we 18 years later from Iron Man 1? It feels like forever. But like I still visually, I see him in the suit with the Obadiah Stane, the white Rolling Stone cover. Like it's visually just burned into my brain because I just remember seeing going like, oh, wow, this is amazing. So thank you, because that was awesome. You did awesome, man.
No. Thanks to Jon Favreau for letting me do it too. He'll probably be like, who was that again? Did he write that during the writer's strike? Because
we're bringing the guy. It's fine. It's fine. Oh man, like there's so many more questions I want to dive into, but I also want to give us a chance to talk about Stuntman because, like I said, I got to see it last night. It really is incredible, and I don't say that just because you're here, but to I'm somebody and that's kind of why I started the show, is because as much as I love, the comic books and the movies and things, like I also am a huge fan. I'm the guy that buys the DVD, watches the movie, then watches it again with the commentary, then watches it again with the special features and the bloopers, because like I love the behind the scenes of it. I love the making of it. So getting to see what we never get to see from Stuntman was such a cool look for everybody that's out there. You love the stunts, you love the car explosions and the flipping and the on fire and like those are human beings doing that. And this film, as much as it is about the Evel Knievel stunt, which is what we build to, like it really is about kind of the everyday stuntman. What it is like living that life. So I guess right off the bat, and I kind of I don't want to spoil it, right? We're not going to talk about the ending. Let people watch it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
But let's go back to the beginning. I know you said you met Eddie. And we kind of see it in the film. Is that when you met Eddie in the film for the first time?
That's actually after we decided to make this movie together. I wound up booking one more car commercial, and we had already started filming this documentary. So we're like, no one else would let us on their sets to like, hey, can we film Eddie behind the scenes on this top secret, Coca-Cola commercial? And they're like, no. So I was like, oh, well, I'm going to hire you again for the stunt driver for this other car commercial. So let's kill two birds with one stone. We're going to film the document. So we'd already decided to make the film together, and then we kind of had that moment right there. So yeah. So Good eye though. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course I see it. So for those that don't know, when you watch the movie, keep an eye out for Kurt because he's in there. He makes a couple appearances in the film. Was that weird being in front of the camera and behind the camera at the same time?
It was, but it was only a brief moment. I have, I know this is about stuntmen, but I do have respect for actors because I got to tell you, like the few actors I've directed, like as soon as you cross that thing and that lens is on you, it's suddenly like, I don't know how to communicate in English properly. Like I did a couple things on camera once before, and funny enough, speaking of special features and all that kind of stuff, I'm on the special features for Minority Report, and it was a surprise. And I got a call from Spielberg's office. Oh, come by. I thought it was like doing a commentary. And they're like, well, hair and makeup is down the hall, and we'll ask you some questions. And CQ, I don't remember making a complete thought in English. I just went, and then I watched the thing, and whoever put it together, like if there are like Pulitzer Prize, Peabody types things to create something out of nothing, this is it. But the point of that is I realized, you can edit people in real life and still kind of get the basis of what they're saying. And that's sort of like the core thing behind documentary. Someone talks and tells a story for an hour long. You got to kind of trim it down to the bare essentials. And so that kind of got me thinking on that. But what were we talking about? Oh yeah, so you're right. The fantastic thing that the thing that I learned the most about making Stuntman is when you see these action films, the cars flipping and people falling out of windows. There's this strange suspension of disbelief that you have when you say, "Hey, this is fiction. This is make believe. We know it's fake. It's not real. No one's getting hurt, right?" And upon day one of meeting Eddie and doing a stunt thing, it's like, oh, you get hurt. You get hurt all the time. Like there's no getting around it. But as Eddie would say, the trick is you just can't get injured. So that was like a real big eye opener. There's a stunt that the film opens with, which, it's not spoiling anything, called, the stunt guys call it a cannon roll. And it's this thing you would see in a lot of Michael Bay movies where if a car turns and suddenly there's an explosion underneath and it flips in the air, you're like, that was a little over the top. But there's a guy in that car doing that stunt. And your first thought is like, well, that's ridiculous. We have CGI. Why are we doing this? And the reality is that, until there's a stunt setting on driverless cars, you still need a guy to be behind the wheel, because once that stunt's over, it's his job to make sure the engine's off, and so it does the wheel, in case it lands upside down, the wheels aren't turning and doesn't drive into the crew. So even though they're exploding and flipping around, they're thinking, okay, as soon as this ends, I got to make sure the gas is off, and they're always thinking about safety, even when they're on fire and rolling around and stuff. So that was really, again, another eye-opening experience was that. So yeah, no, it's nuts.
Yeah, like you hit the nail on the head, and I mean, obviously, your movie, you directed it, but watching it, like I just kept getting hit over the head with like, man, like these dudes get rocked. Like you see it, and you can almost see it because you have the cameras like right in his face, and you can almost see like the eyes kind of rolling back and that kind of like dazed and lost. And then everybody runs in. He's like, "Hey, I'm okay. No, are you okay? No, I'm okay. Are you okay?" Like, it's this back and forth because, like, I being in the military and I was in combat, and all the time, an explosion will go off and you get rocked, and like you're just instinct is like, I'm fine. Like the bottom half of you could be gone, and you're like, I'm fine, I'm good. But like, you really get a sense of like these crews that come running in and just the danger of it and the impact it takes. We see Eddie get multiple injuries. It was a bunch of times you could tell his bell got rung in this movie, and you don't shy away from that, which I think is vital to telling the story of these guys and what they do and what they put. Sorry, I can't. My brain is struggling to accept it. Like this guy gets in his car, he's like, all right, I'm gonna drive to near death, blow up, which again, from the viewer's perspective, is like, oh, cool, fireball, and it flips over. But like when you see it inside, like it explodes from inside the car. Like you see fire and explode, and he's flipping and he's rolling, and it's like, oh my God, it just doesn't stop. It just keeps going.
Yeah. And it was like a NASA launch gone wrong. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. Yeah, we to that scene. He was going to do the stunt, which basically goes, you have a bomb in the back of your car, an actual live bomb. And the reason why you need a stunt driver is the idea is that you need to slide the car at the right angle so it looks, like actors have a good side, like so do cars. You have to get it the right side to the lens. And at a certain point, he triggers the bomb, which then explodes and sends them skyrocketing and rolling and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, but I said, hey, do you mind if we put GoPros inside there? I'm just curious. And so we did that. And your reaction is the same reaction I had when I first saw this footage. I'm like, but they just love making movies. They do it because they love making films. Like all the conversations I had with Eddie and his sort of elder statesman stuntmen that, the older guys, and even they're just committed to their craft, and they're just as excited as anyone else on the set to like make this shot work. And like their first question, like after you're all right, is how'd it look? Is the shot good? Is it good? Is it good? It's like, wait a minute. Yeah, like you said, let's make sure your head's not concussed before we talk about the shot. But that's their mentality. They love making this stuff, and it was very refreshing to see that like someone who's a group of people who are so excited about their craft and so excited about the process of making films that they put themselves in harm's way, or they protect the cast, or they protect the star, and they step in when there's danger. It kind of sounds like a superhero, They wear masks, they wear suits, their face is not to be seen, and the tagline initially was the face you never see. And like that was another part that Eddie and I had to get over, is because he spent his entire career, hiding his face, making sure the camera wasn't looking at it, because he was always stunt doubling either Charlie Sheen or some other guy. And so it was really a strange leap for him to suddenly be on camera, and that took a little time to get there and some comfort, but we got there around year 2, so it all worked out.
And that's a great point too, because nobody's seen it yet, but this takes place over a large, chunk of time for what I would assume is a typical documentary. Maybe wildlife or some story where 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, a year. This takes place over a very large time. When you got started, like where's your headspace at? Like, okay, this is going to take me X amount of time. And then kind of as it adds on and on and on, like, where's your head at? Where you're like, is this ever going to happen? Like, what are you thinking during this process?
That's a great question. I had no idea what I was signing up for. I would do it all over again in a heartbeat. But I had heard from other people who have made documentaries that, like, this is a long process. And I was like, no. We'll have this wrapped up in a year, because I don't want to reveal any story points. But it seemed like the launch of his quest. Well, I guess we should talk about what his quest, the Odyssey. And again, this isn't spoiling anything when you do hopefully watch it on July 23rd. I know He-Man is coming out that same day, and Snake Eyes is also coming out. But the good thing about streamers, it's always going to be there. There's no competition. It's not like you're flipping channels and stuff. I was kind of bummed. I was like, Snake Eyes, how could you? Like, my favorite G.I. Joe guy is going to have his thing. So Eddie had been doing stunts now for 30 years when I had met him. And as great of a craftsman as he was, it is this area of the business that you can only do so long. Like the odds are you're going to really injure yourself. And so he was joking like, hey, I can still stand. I can walk, I don't have too many broken bones. I really should retire, as one should after 30 years. But he didn't want to just kind of retire. He really wanted to do something as a gesture to honor his fellow stuntmen, and like something that would just cap this 30-year career in a very interesting way. And he thought about the fact that he got into stunts because he met Evel Knievel as a very, very young man. And for those that don't know, Evel Knievel is this strange phenomenon from the late 60s, early 70s. He was sort of the first reality star, but, instead of Gordon Ramsay, he was breaking bones and jumping motorcycles instead of cooking. But what he would do is he would wear a cape. He had this suit. He kind of had this Captain America vibe, and he had this persona that was incredibly heroic. And so kids, that when you're 8 and 9, you're like, I will follow this man.
He was the all-American,
the all guy, and he's saying no to drugs and all this kind of stuff. And if you fall down on your bike, just get back up. Success comes to those who try and keep trying. So Eddie, was his childhood hero, and it turned out that Evil's career sort of ended on this big mission. He wanted to jump the Grand Canyon, and the Secretary of Interior said, "No, you're not doing that." So he decided to. He found a canyon in Idaho called the Snake River Canyon. Like, how symbolic is that name, the Snake River Canyon? And he finally was convinced that he can't jump it in a motorcycle, that he's going to need a little more horsepower. So he hired a founding father of NASA, this guy Robert Truax, who designed Thor missiles that came out of the submarines in the 50s, and I think was part of the team that figured out the staging in the Apollo, like the first thing. So he's no slouch. And he designs him this steam-powered rocket that was going to essentially launch him over the canyon, and was going to be a crash landing no matter what. But he had this parachute system that was going to open up, and it was going to land him, bumpy on the other side.
Relatively.
But the funny part is all this time, Evel Knievel's the first guy to have real man who had his own toy line. This predates Chuck Norris when he had those weird action figures and Mr. T. He had a toy line based on him and his costume. And when I started researching this, I'm like, this is the bravest toy salesman known to man, because he had a what they called a sky cycle, which was the rocket he was going to launch it. They already had the toy ready to go, and kids would buy it and launch it over creeks and stuff. So he kind of had to do this stunt no matter what, because he was talking about it for years. And so he finally did it, and it was the first pay-per-view known to man. Vince McMahon, produced and all this kind of stuff. And as the legend goes, the steam power was so strong, it kind of knocked him out, and he had his hand on this parachute, this dead man switch, and he must have let go of it, because as the rocket was taking off, the chute opened up prematurely and dragged him back, and he went into the canyon. And because he's Evel Knievel and there's some weird spiritual thing going on with him, he didn't land in the river, but 2 feet away on the river bed. If he had landed in the river, he would have died, because he was strapped into this rocket. So this is terrifying. This is alarming. This almost killed your childhood hero. And Eddie goes, I'm going to finish that stunt. I'm going to jump the Snake River Canyon in honor of my childhood hero, but I'm going to make it to the other side and complete his mission. And he's telling me this over lunch, like on a break while we're filming this car commercial. And I was just like, may I film this, sir? I will follow you into the breach. Like, let's do this. And he's like, you want him? Like, yes, please. And so that's, to answer your question, my head was, I knew Eddie to be a man of his word. If he said he was going to do something, he was going to do something. So if he said he was going to do this insane stunt to honor Stuntman and his childhood hero, and I was going to get to film it, that was going to happen. I thought it was going to happen sooner than it wound up happening. But the logistics of, stuntmen get hired by film productions to do a stunt in a film that a guy wrote or someone directed. You don't just sort of go out and go, I'm going to do a stunt for doing stunt's sake. So this is the first time anyone really did that. So he winds up building an exact replica of the rocket. He found the son of Robert Truax, the NASA guy. He had his dad's specs, and like I got chills listening to this. So this and the son was like, my dad on live television, when Knievel's rocket went to the canyon, he got made fun of, and like in his obituary was, the man who screwed up Evel Knievel's rocket. It's like, this is the founding father of NASA. He debriefed Werner von Braun when we got him from the Nazis. Like, this guy was, again, no slouch, but he was at the end of his career as a guy who screwed up the thing. So he wanted to, correct his father's legacy and prove that the rocket was going to work. So now you have these two men that have these like parallel journeys of like doing this. Canyon meant so much to Eddie and also meant to Scott Truax, the son. So I'm just like filming, going, I can't believe the story I'm just documenting. Like it's a Hollywood film. It's like a superhero action film. So that's the film. I guess you don't need to see it now, but sort of, I won't tell you how it ends, but it's it's pretty insane, and it's worth the ride.
It's worth the watch. I mean, you're selling it short too. I mean, honestly, how epic it is and all the pieces, and it's like this giant puzzle, and like, okay, we got to get all the pieces to fit just right, and there's a thing with the financing and the thing with the dates and the thing. It was supposed to be live on TV and like all these different things that come and go. Can you talk a little bit? I mean, obviously, what a big name. This is executive produced by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Like that's a huge thing in today. I mean, what was it like when you heard it and how like that came all about? I can't imagine.
Yeah, it was just this strange par for the course of how this journey began. It was like make no mistake, like this was hard, like, blood, sweat, tears went into my tears, two girlfriends' tears, a different, like I went through two relationships. I moved like it was 7 years of my life. And we were just Eddie and I and Steve Golubiowski, my producing partner, we were just like, we're just going to, no matter what happens, we're going to finish this movie. Because after he did the launch, it was still putting the film together and trying to get it sold and finding a distributor and all that kind of stuff. That was almost more anxiety filled than the actual day of launching this rocket. So we finished the thing, and the first thing that we wanted to do was show the stunt community when it was done, because we wanted their blessing. And one of the stuntmen who saw it was this great guy named Tunaway Reed. And he said, gosh, this is really fantastic. I'd love to show my cousin, who I'm also his stunt double, Dwayne Johnson. And we were like, oh, that'd be amazing. But he had been involved in this project earlier, because at one point it was going to be a live television event. And when it was a live television event, his company $7 was going to help produce it. So they were going to, and I, as the documentary filmmaker, was like, so the ending to my movie is going to be broadcast, and all right. But then that fell through, and as sad as I was for my friend Eddie, I was like, okay, we still got a movie here. So there was this perfect convergence of, his cousin stunt double showing him the film and him going, oh, I remember when this guy was going to do it. So it kind of clicked, and he saw it, and he loved it. And he's like, how can I help? And that was just, you know what, I'm going to revise my previous answer about what was my insane moment. I can't believe I'm here. That was the moment when I found out that he was going to come aboard as our executive producer. That was just I felt like we were in good hands at that point, and we were, because we wound up getting it on Disney Plus and all that stuff. So I'm very grateful and very thankful that it happened. But, you know, make no mistake, it was a journey. There was a lot of time I was like, I'm going to make a movie about a stuntman who doesn't jump the Snake River Canyon, because like it was just logistics was just so crazy. But yeah, so that was amazing. And he was he and his production company, because we wound up doing some more work to it, because, you know, we wanted to make it longer and add some more stuff. And so they were helpful with ideas and notes. And so they were just wonderful collaborators and partners. And I'm so grateful of their involvement.
That's so cool. And no spoilers. He kind of opens the movie. He does a little thing at the beginning, which was very cool to when someone's so passionate about something and believes in something, that they're, you know, he's putting his stamp on it. He's putting, hey, I'm backing this. I'm using my persona, which, I mean, everybody in the world now knows The Rock. So that's such it's like, as a viewer, that's going like, wow, this guy's, you know, he's putting his stamp on it, and like that, I got to pay attention, because if he's involved, I got to pay attention. So that was really cool. And Kaz in the chats, I see your question. I'm going to put a little spin on it. So I got you, buddy. So I'm curious. Again, this movie takes place over such a long time. How different from what you originally, and I think we kind of touched on it, but what you originally envisioned for this film versus kind of what it eventually turned out, right? Like because like, you know, knowing everything that happened towards the end and in the middle, like that wasn't what was supposed to happen. So how far did you stray from kind of what was the original envision of this film?
Well, as I learned, you know, this is my first feature documentary. I dabbled in a lot of things up until this point. And the other thing I told was like, it's not going to look like the way you thought it was going to be when you're done. Because the one interesting thing about making documentaries is you can just start. Our co-producer, Rob Wilson, who's a seasoned documentary producer, he said, you know, you don't have to wait for a script. You don't have to cast it. You don't have to spend years in development. You can just get a camera and just start filming. And that's the beauty of documentaries. What they don't tell you is that how long it takes, and then how long it takes to shape that story in the editing room. I mean, when you're editing, it's kind of like trying to piece that all together. So the odd thing is, CQ, I'll say this to you, when Eddie told me about what he was going to do, hand to God, I had this vision of this sort of parting shot in the film. And was very powerful. And that's what got me excited. And it would be strange to say that, well, how could I do that? Because I'm following this man's story, and, you know, I'm not, you know, I'm directing the film, but I'm not like staging it. I'm just sort of making sure I'm there to capture these moments and make sure the camera is there at the right time when these moments happen. And there's this last shot in the film while we were doing it, and one of the last ones, and I'm just like, this is exactly what I envisioned. I kind of get like, I'm not saying I'm a genius. I just started freaking out. Like I got really sweaty, and like I thought maybe it was a time loop, or maybe I was dreaming the whole thing, because it was just such an emotional roller coaster of a day filming that. But the film, it was not exactly the way it was I envisioned, but some of these moments were came out, and they just naturally occurred, and that was the most strange thing I think that happened, because that's not normal in documentaries. You don't have a vision of the ending, because it never usually works that way. But you know, as we were going, I thought the story was going to end a lot sooner, because events were going to take place that was going to help expedite his journey, and then certain things happened that wound up prolonging his journey. And while prolonging it, that's where we got into the meat of the story and stuff like that. So
it's the hero's journey. It's the trials and the tribulations. If it was all easy, that's a half an hour special. but
exactly,
you know,
and I love Hollywood movies, and I just, you know, I'm looking at the stuff, and I'm like, this man's stories, his naturally occurring story arc, is that of a Hollywood film. Like, the turn in Act 1, the twist in Act 2, the triumphant Act 3. I'm like, we're making a nonfiction Hollywood action movie. This is crazy, and it just happened. It's just lining up. There's no like, we're not forcing stuff around. And as a matter of fact, my sound guy was on a lot of reality TV, and every sort of strange, wonderful moment that would happen between something two stunt guys said, he just had this look on his face. I'm like, Chris, is everything all right? He's like, we usually have to stage stuff, you know. I'm like just that's stuntmen for you. They have wonderful stories, right, wonderful moments. Just keep up. Just keep up. That's all I could say.
That's awesome. I'm curious. We're not going to talk about it here, but when we throw this to the break, I want to ask you, because I think I know the shot you're talking about, and I want to pick your mind and see if I nail it. But okay. I think we're there. We'll talk about that.
Awesome.
So, man, there's so much too, and we're running short on time. So I'm gonna make sure we get all this. Okay, we talked about the roadblocks and kind of, you know, the different things. And because we touched on it just a little bit, and I want to go further. As a director of a documentary where you have to be almost passive, almost like I'm just here to capture it, how much artistic choice do you really get in making this film? You know what I mean? In the different, you know, the different phases of production, like how much of it do you really get to, and how much is it just like, hey man, it happened and we were just here?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the biggest hand of a craftsman as a film director maker in this process was the editing. And it felt like it's a reverse engineered Hollywood film. You're actually, as my producer Steven observed, like you're writing a screenplay with footage, and you're sort of making these decisions to shape. I don't want to make it sound like we edited him to make him something that he's not, but there's definitely similar processes where you're shaping a character, you're shaping a story, so much so that like there's a really long, boring version of this movie out there if anyone wants to. And I'll tell you, like, you can't get through it. And that just says something about what happens in the editing room, especially for documentaries. Like, that's truly where the story takes shape. And to Eddie's credit, you know, he just said, have at it. Like, I hired my friend Jeremy Zuckerman, who composed all the music for Avatar: The Last Airbender. He did the score. You know, the tone and the vibe and the feeling of the film is very much, you know, I guess me in a weird way, because Eddie did this stunt because it was the sum of all of his experiences. He could not have gotten to that rocket and may or may not have made it, because of the result of it. And I just said, I could not have done this film, you know, fresh out of school. Like, this was the sum of all my experiences. Like, I took me a year and change just to get it to a functioning cut, and you know, getting comfortable with Eddie's family. So I felt comfortable being a fly on the wall, so I could capture these moments. So I guess to answer your question, the tone and the vibe, the soundtrack, the pacing, the intensity, the sort of arc of the story is where you truly have a hand in, because that's what you got to kind of shape it to be something that you know, that's got a good structure. And our other executive producer, Julie Benson, she was is a TV writer, and she writes comic books too. She used to write Green Arrow. She did a long run on Batgirl and Birds of Prey, and she was very helpful because she was really good at understanding story structure. And even though it's nonfiction, even though it's this man's life and it's his story, you still sort of had to fit it into this sort of structure that we realized was happening naturally. And she was very helpful because all of us had like so much emotions attached to every frame of footage. She was very good at going, well, that scene's stupid. Take that out. That's dumb. I'm bored here. How am I bored in a movie called Stuntman? But I am. So she was like this perfect set of eyes to just kind of gut check things. And so that was, I knew that her perspective as a fresh outsider who hadn't lived through the ordeal would be able to be very objective about some of these decisions on what went in and went out of the movie. And again, we didn't, nothing's fake. Nothing's like, you know, scripted. There's no CGI. It is definitely as it happened. It's just presented in a way and crafted in a way with a soundtrack to make it feel again, like this sort of nonfiction action movie.
Right. Yeah. I think about it like it did. I did a bunch of combat deployments. Not every day is a firefight. Not every day is a shootout. It's you're just trimming out all the like we're just sitting around smoking. Like you're just trimming all that out and getting all the highlights. It as we're talking and as I'm thinking about the picture, like he's a modern day superhero, and I'm like he puts on the cot like he has his mild mannered life, like you see him in his element and the kids and the wife, and he's very like you couldn't pick him out of a lineup as this guy, and he puts on the suit, puts on the helmet, and he goes to work, and he's just doing these ridiculous superhuman feats. I mean, you made a superhero movie. I mean, really, you did, because it's incredible.
Thank you. That is music to my ears. That was the other sort of agenda. I'm like, because as you know, I'm a big comic guy, and like hearing that, like I picked up on those parallels, and to hear you say that back to me, it's just like, thank you, CQ. And so much so that's exactly it. They don't do it for fame. They don't do it for notoriety. They do it because they just love it, and they want to protect people and make sure people are safe on set. And they wear a cool suit while they're doing it. Sometimes they wear a mask and a helmet. So yeah, I'm glad you picked up on that, because that was definitely a North Star.
Put their life on the line, man. I've maybe me more because I'm tuned into this stuff, but like I read stories about this stuntman on this set, like the thing goes wrong and it goes into the water, and oh my god, tragic drowning, or there's the Daredevil guy who just died 2 weeks ago trying to do the longest jump on his motorcycle, 319 feet, and died on impact. Like these are people putting themselves out there, and in Eddie's case, it's for entertainment, right? It's for 4 seconds that might or might not make the cut of a movie or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. I'm so glad you did this story for them. Let me ask you, having spent so much time around stuntmen as you did, what do you think is the biggest misconception about the craft, about the people, about the job, whatever, of stuntmen?
That's a great question. I think the biggest misconception is that they're a little nuts. They're irresponsible. They just want to have fun. They want to show off. There's something not quite right with them. And everyone I met is just so grounded and so passionate about their craft. And they'll tell you they're not daredevils. They're like, we only do something if we know it's going to be safe. And we know it's going to be safe because we've either done it before or other people have, and we collaborate and we talk. And Buddy Joe Hooker is one of the elder statesmen, the Greek chorus in the film. And he has been doing stunts since the 60s. And he actually was in the rocket car in Hooper, the Hal Needham, Burt Reynolds film, which is all about stuntmen. And he said the same thing. He's like, daredevils just do their thing and they don't know what's going to happen. Evil Knievel was like that. I'm going to jump this canyon. I'm not sure what's going to happen. This poor man on the bike, I'm going to try and do it. I don't know what's happening. Stuntmen, like, I want to know what's going to happen. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it. So just hearing how committed and responsible they are. And the best takeaway from I've never met people who are like, there's this phrase that Eddie says, let your yeses be yes and your no's be no. And that speaks so much volumes to them as a community, because if you say, hey, I'm going to double for Ryan Gosling and I will jump off the bridge as it's called on page 90 of the script, I'm going to do it. So $100,000 worth of crew is standing at the thing. You can't go, on second thought, now that I'm here, I see how high it is. Like, I'm not so sure. Like, you have to be committed and you have to be prepared to do this thing. And and they have the best production stories. Like, they have the greatest stories. And that's why I wish I could have included more in this film, because there was just so much. I mean, it was a tough balance because it is very much an odyssey. It is about a man's quest to jump this canyon and complete his childhood hero's mission. But at the same time, we're getting this look into the world of a real look at how stunts really look and what really happens to people when they perform them and what it can do to you. And so it was like trying to find that balance was another big thing. But no, they're intelligent, committed movie lovers like nobody's business,
Yeah.
So
no, I definitely I took away a how extraordinary more dangerous it is than I thought. Being a guy, I love this. I watch the stunts and I go like, oh, that's cool. And like it's different seeing it in a movie versus like being in the cockpit with the guy and like see, oh my God, he exploded inside.
Yeah.
So it's way more dangerous, but at the same time, it's also there's so much more safety involved than I ever thought. Like I thought it was like, put the bomb in, I push the button, I blow. But like there's so many, obviously the equipment and the cars and the people and the all that stuff. And like there's a point towards the climax, again, no spoilers, but like you're getting to this moment and it was like it was almost a frustration because it's like time slows down. It's like, okay, do we check this? Do we check that? Do we check this? It's like, oh my God, just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Like, but it pays off in the sense that like so much thought and care goes into this. I mean, what could be the last thing you ever do for all you know? I mean, they really took it serious.
They do. And, just to tie it back to why we're here and why we're talking, this was, because of you and other people in the military, you make these sacrifices and stuff and experience things that most civilians never experience. And the closest thing I think I came to was on this launch day. And again, without spoiling the film, like there was several moments where I was like, I'm about to film a man die. Like he's not going to survive this. And the feeling I got with that realization was I don't ever want to feel that again. And I just can't imagine, when you were just talking earlier about like sit around smoking and then have some combat fire, then sit around smoking. It's like, how do you get that feeling to go away and jump back in is just beyond me. And like getting a taste of like, that kind of outcome was it's still, I'll be honest, I still get a little shaken up thinking about it because it was just, I never been in that experience before because again, this was not a stunt that was planned or even had a successful outcome when someone tried it before. So, getting just a touch of that, sir, like, thank you for your service. Like, I don't know how you put the cigarette down and go back out again. Cause that feeling I got, that just sank into my balls. I was just like, that was nuts. It was beyond crazy. So
yeah, we're all a little crazy. We're like, kind of like stuntmen in that. We're just like, just go out and do it again. Bigger bomb next time.
Do it again. Bigger bomb.
Bigger bomb. Okay. We're coming to the end. Once again, guys, STUNTMAN, Disney Plus, July 23rd. I know Snake Eyes is out there. I know He-Man's out there. There's time enough for all of it, but I can't employ. And here's the thing: my audience knows I don't push things that I don't believe in. I'll watch stuff and I'll be like, it was all right. Check it out if you want. I'm telling you, you guys got to watch this. It's an incredible piece. Me and my wife are big fans on based on true story. I mean, you can't get more based on a true story than the actual story as it's happening. So we were big fans of it. Really enjoyed it. I want to give you a chance. Talk directly to the audience. Where can they follow you on social media? Where can they help promote the show? I mean, how can they connect with you?
Oh, I am on Instagram at Kurt Mattila, KurtMattila. That's probably a good place to find me. I forgot that I still have a Facebook account, but I might be phasing that out because we were glitchy the whole night. Apparently, I mean, what good is that? So yeah, that's the best place to. I think there's going to be like a Stuntman movie website, and I can't say when, but there will be an actual trailer. Years ago, The Rock put something on his Instagram. He did a teaser years ago that was really cool, but that was just like a little tease from 2018. So we've since obviously done a lot more. And sometime between now and July 23rd, there will be a proper trailer and a proper poster. We just can't say when because they haven't told me. So
of all your experience of editing a trailer, they didn't even let you do that, man. Come on.
No, it's funny you should say that. And by the way, we can chat for a little bit longer. Okay. We don't, if the plug gets pulled, the trailer is really good, and it was the first time someone else besides me. I edited the movie, So it was nice to see someone else's perspective. And all I can say is, oh, it's a perfect distillation of the film. I knew all the tricks. Like they didn't have to upsell it or put something here and change things and make it more dramatic. So that's all I can say on that. I probably said too much, but the experience with Disney, by the way, was really amazing. The funny part was, someone in legal was going through because we had a lot of footage that we had to make sure was cleared. And she said, I couldn't get through. It was too intense. I had to turn it off. I was freaking out. And I was like, oh, that's good. You're still buying it, right? Like you're still going to distribute it, like, right? Like, is that still happen? But no, they've been great. They're behind it. And it's just, another one of those moments. Like, I can't believe that they are, that they're the ones that put their stamp on it and are going to put it out into the world. So,
yeah. I got a ton more questions. By no means am I gonna. I'm not kicking you out. All right, that's not how we do it.
We haven't talked comics enough, or some of the items that are behind you and still mint in the box and so on and so forth.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Let's go for a little while longer. And, round out the pop culture nerd talk. This is where if people thought I was kind of cool and collective, this is where as soon as we bring up comics, it's over. I just go, oh yeah.
Are you kidding me? That's why people tune into this. They love this stuff. Well,
just real quick about your last show. I just like to answer your other question, the golden age that we're living in. It's like, I remember as a kid, it was, who do you think would win in a fight, the Hulk or the Thing? Now it's, who do you think would perform oral sex on Catwoman? I don't know. It may not be Batman. If they do
heroes don't do that. That's what they told us.
Matt Murdock would if he did a little cross promotion, because that guy he's a hero in that respects. Why else would Elektra come back every time from the dead? It's the first stop to see Matt Murdock.
It's so funny, man. Like that was a great callback, man. Awesome callback. But the whole heroes don't do that. Then what are we all fighting for? God damn it. I fought for this country, and if it's not so that Batman could go down on Catwoman, I don't know what I did. Why'd I do any of it? So
amazing.
But if you had, so obviously discounting all or not discounting all the things that have been done, is there something where you're like, man, if I had the money, if I had the backing, I would love to take this property and put my spin on it? You ever think about that? Like, what toy would you like to play with?
All the time. And then what winds up happening is they release announcement that Moon Knight's coming. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. And then I got really mad because I'm like, that's one of my first loves, Mark Spector, the ex-mercenary who was possessed by, the god of the Egyptian god of vengeance. And I found out the guys who made it, and I'm like, who are these subpar film? And I watched their film Synchronic, and it's amazing. I don't know if you've seen Synchronic. I highly recommend it. It's a time travel story, but the mood and the tone, it's very Philip K. Dick. It's like this sort of street level view of the strange story. It's about these two paramedics. Anthony Mackie's one of them, and essentially there's a party drug that one of the side effects is it makes you travel through time. And the mood and the atmosphere and the vibe was quite something. I'm like, if they can put some of that to Moon Knight, once again, CQ, we're in good hands. We're in good hands. Oh, but to answer your question, it's funny. Speaking of the military, like I got into comics. As much as I love superheroes, but it was G.I. Joe that got me into Marvel Comics, like without a doubt, like G.I. Joe and then G.I. Combat. And I've actually recently been reading. There's a 70s series called Weird War Tales by Joe Kubert and whatever, and they're beautiful art, some great stories. But there's a character called the Spectre that I've always been interested in.
The Spectre.
The Spectre.
Yeah, green and
gray. Yeah. There's this neat intersection of like corrupt cop gone wrong to like vengeful spirit. Like there's a little James Ellroy, there's a little supernatural, and he's a character that the Superman guy co-created back in the day, Jerry Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster. I always mess Siegel and Shuster. I always mess that up. But he's been around since the 40s. There's in the 70s they did a great run where it was almost like I'm not a big horror guy, but there's something fascinating about this. Like they'd have like these like Twilight Zone horror stories, and the Spectre would come in, and it was just all very chilling. So I kind of like that. And then there's this D-list character on Marvel that appeared in Marvel Premiere and then later on in Daredevil and then a few times in McFarlane's run during Spider-Man called Paladin. And Paladin is just, he's a mercenary. He's like, you have some trouble with Hydra? Here's my fee. Oh, you don't want to pay me? Go call Spider-Man. He was like the Han Solo of the Marvel universe. But something about his costume and his mentality I thought was kind of interesting. But all the big guns, the big toys are in good hands, and man, oh man, I'm so happy. Like WandaVision, I thought was great. It wasn't as Tom King-y run as I thought it was going to be, but it was still quite something. So,
well, I mean, hey, you now got connections with Disney Plus, man. Hey, with that Paladin series, I'm gonna be listening to see if I hear it coming out.
You heard it here first. Be like, hey, that what a good problem that would have.
We're selling it, but no, I agree. Spectre is something that has been really on no one's radar. I know if you follow the entire Arrowverse, there's a brief moment where they had the big like crossover event, the Infinite Crisis, Earth, whatever, and then. He kind of Green Arrow kind of dies and kind of comes back as the Spectre, and it's like a whole thing. But they haven't done that character justice yet. I agree. I'd be in on that. I'll back it.
Who should do it is like Guillermo del Toro. Let's be honest. I would love to take a spin, but I would yield to someone like him because it's that kind of vibe. Because we haven't had like a good, except for Blade, the first Blade, we haven't had like a good sort of comic book horror type film.
Sure.
They sort of merged the genres a little bit. So
and I know when they talked about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, the new one that's coming out, the first things that came out was like, oh, this is gonna be a horror movie, and everybody's like, wait, what? Wait, what? And then you're like, okay, well, you bring in Raimi and his background in Army of the Dead and all this, and it's. They're obviously they kind of backtrack. They're like, okay, it's not gonna be a horror movie. There'll just be horror elements into it, and it's like, all right, that makes sense. But yeah, no, I think I think you're right. And with the success of something like Doctor Strange, because the first one was pretty trippy. It was pretty trippy. Yeah. Like if you were on the wrong kind of shrooms and like watch that movie, your head explodes. But you take that, you give it to Sam Raimi, and then hey, go off and run with it. I'm sure it could lead into those kind of. I was talking to somebody about like the Marvel Knights, right? You have your Punisher, your Daredevil, and those guys, and kind of run with the dark edge, Werewolf by Night, and things like that, and really run with it. No, that's so cool. I never get to geek out with people like this. This is fun.
Yeah. I'm worried about the Flash movie, and I'll tell you why. Like we're all excited about Michael Keaton's appearance way more than it's a Flash movie, and so you got to go like
that's what I said.
It's like you're like just do Dark Knight Returns with the Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne. Like just stop beating around the bush. Just that's what we want.
Yeah.
I don't know if Ezra Miller. I don't ever throw shade on these things because I love all of them and to a certain degree. But that seems troubling that we're excited about this cameo and not more than the actual film.
I said the same. I've said the same thing multiple times. I said, when you want your superhero movie to stand on the superhero, and then you start like, okay, we did Superman. Okay, it was pretty good. Superman Batman featuring Wonder Woman. It's like, whoa, okay, now this is getting a little muddled. And then it's like Justice League. Like, whoa, my God. It's like the fact that they're saying, hey, it's the Flash movie featuring Supergirl, Batman, the other Batman, the older Batman. Like, it's like, the Flash is in this, right? Like, he's in this one? Like, is that...
the only time they pulled that off successfully was Civil War, Captain America.
Civil War.
Like, they balanced it somehow. They put that all those characters and they got it right. And I hope they crack the code with the Flash, because we want all these to be
Absolutely.
good and no, I told you so. But yeah, it's
no, yeah, I say the same thing. Like, look, we can say when we feel like some house of ideas is not coming up with the good stuff, but I want them all to be successful. To counter your Dark Knight, I was like, just make Batman Beyond, like make old man
Batman Beyond, yeah.
old man Batman, and you can make him from the '89 era that he just lived long enough to be in the future, and give him a sidekick, and boom, we're off and running. But to do the Flash thing, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, and the Snyderverse too. Like the thing I gotta give the guy credit because it's like they tried really hard to make a flavor that was different from the Marvel movies.
Yep.
And it's a flavor that no one really wanted, but man, oh man, they committed to trying to do something different, and that Snyder cut was it was good. It was an interesting lesson in like making sure you stick to your vision and don't get too crazy with that stuff. So I don't know. I admire the attempt, but the execution was a little strange.
I get it. I agree with you. Like you don't need to copy and paste what Marvel's doing just because it's successful, just because it's making money. God forbid you copy and paste that, but.
Yep.
You got to know the tone of the content. Applying the Dark Knight filter to Superman maybe wasn't the right move. Like I don't need a Superman that's popping dudes' heads off. Like that doesn't sit right with me as an audience member. But
I'm with you. Man of Steel, strange feat. Great soundtrack. I thought the soundtrack was really good.
Right.
So.
Well, while we're reminiscing here, let me ask you: a director, you worked with a lot of talent. You've been around the block for a little bit. Any funny anecdotes you can tell us behind the scenes? Maybe a certain actor or a certain big name. You don't have to name names, but just something that might be surprising or just a little hilarious to find out.
Yeah, there's one comes to mind, and again, this brings us back to Minority Report because that was like my baptism of fire. But Tom Cruise is in this film; he's the star, and his character, is at those scenes now where he's analyzing the dreams to find the clues to when this murder is going to happen in the future, and he's trying to find moments and stuff, and that's the stuff that me and my team was responsible for. I always imagine him as being like an editor, like he's looking through dream footage to find clues.
Right.
But in the script they always talked about that being a thing, but no one really sort of like, so what does that look like? So my buddy and I made this little previs, and we showed Steve, and he's like, oh, we'll do that. So comes to the day that we're going to film that scene, and you show up, and the set is beautiful, but he's working against a blank screen. There's nothing there to sort of cue him as to what all this stuff is. And what I observed was the following, CQ. They were rewriting the script, giving him new lines to say, and they were blocking the scene. And what that means is, make sure you step here when you say this line, and Colin Farrell comes in and you talk to him there. So there's that level of memorization. Then the third level is Steven goes, go tell Tom what you want to do with the thing. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I went up and like, Mr. Cruise, so at this moment, you're going to see a thing. So zoom in like this. And then we're giving all this minutia stuff to like track in his mind. And he goes, okay. He disappears for 5 minutes, comes back, they roll camera, and he does everything. Hits all his marks, says all the new lines, and then does all the bullshit minutia we just asked him to do in one take. It was perfect. And they yell cut. I'm just like, am I the only one who just witnessed the feat of like like how did he remember to do all that? It was impossible. It was impossible. So that was the one all I think of is just like, I guess that's why he gets paid all this money, because he's like a sponge. He absorbed all that stuff and then he's like spit it out perfectly. I to this day I can't believe what I witnessed. So
I can only imagine what he was doing with those 5 minutes.
Yeah, what was he doing with those 5 minutes? He's like, yes. Beams were coming down. Maybe those.
Speaking of L. Ron
DC-10 came in. Yeah, L. Ron was his acting coach. Yeah. I'm sure gave him some kind of tip.
That's awesome.
Man, well, that's a whole other podcast, right?
It's a whole other conversation. I met Tom once, and it was a very strange interaction. It was at his. It was a birthday party, but it wasn't a birthday party in the sense it was at this grand hall. He was having it was almost kind of like a roast Yeah, it was kind of like a roast, but also
semi roast.
Yeah, it was just it was a weird thing because it was like I kind of want to be roasted, but like I don't want to be roasted, and then there was performances, and it was a whole thing. It was a big gala hall, and yeah, I'm sure lovely guy. I'm sure. And the thing that stays with me whenever I see him on theaters and movies and Mission Impossible flying off planes and things is he had this really weird laugh, and that he kind of laughed with his whole body, and it like convulsed, and he would like he was sitting, so I'm sure that's a little bit different, but he would like rock back and forth like this weird metronome and laugh, and I just in my head I don't know why I was like, that's what a robot pretending to be human, like that's how he would act. Like, how do I laugh? Ha 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 ha. And it was just it was so strange that so now no matter
it now.
Yeah, like no matter how cool he looks in movies. Exactly. No matter how cool he looks in movies, I keep thinking like, is that Tom Cruise? Is that the thing that replaced Tom Cruise? I don't know. It is strange though. I get one last question. Just from obviously, again, you spent so much time with stuntmen, and we kind of touched on CGI. Where do you see like? I mean, I see things like Avatar, and where it's this all CGI. I mean, you just know there's really no practical. I mean, I swear the ground is CGI at this point. These guys are just in space. I mean, where do you see the line? Will there ever be a time where like, stuntmen might be out of work, or is this something that's so ingrained in film history and that like it'll never go away? The CGI will never replace it. I mean, where do you see kind of the line with that?
Yeah. So it brings me. It's two things. Response to that. One, yes, it's part of film history. It's ingrained to film history. They should have an Oscar category for best stunts, only because film has evolved so much, and whereas stunts have always been part of the filmmaking process, the genre of films that we're doing now requires so much more sophisticated stunt work than in previous years that it seems crazy to not go, okay, well, this whole amazing sequence in Skyfall, the stunt coordinator and the director of photography were like hand in hand figuring that stuff out with the director. Like that's a key component to the filmmaking process. Obviously, I think there's a slight Academy snobbery because it's genre specific. In the same way, like best costuming probably shines the most in a period drama, which makes sense. Like, oh, look at that costume. But these insane action films, the ones that wind up getting like best sound or best sound editing, chances are it's with sequences that, a lot of times these stunt coordinators are very collaborative and help design that stuff. So they should be, they should have their own category. I mean, at this point, it seems crazy that they don't. And so bringing it to your actual question, I think it's always going to be a part of it, because in this now great dominant genre we have now, which is the comic book movie, Anthony Mackie as the Falcon, now Captain America, he's that role is half acting, half fighting. And he's not doing all the fighting. Someone else is doing that. So whereas, you don't necessarily need to have I'm not saying like, well, you got to get best stunt double goes to whatever, but just sort of this encompassing best stunts, I think is the thing. So you will always need to have someone performing stunts, performing the stuff. And I think we know when something's CG, and we'll obviously get to a point where it's great, but there's so many directors now that are also very much trying to get stuff in camera. Like I heard Chloe Zhao said that a lot of Eternals is like very little CG, like she tried to get as much stuff in the actual frame. So there's a stylistic choice that we have to sort of still work in with stunt sequences where they're all proverbially in camera. Like they have some enhancements, but it's happening for real. And I think the biggest breakthrough that they did on The Mandalorian with creating this dome, so you can sort of essentially be in those virtual worlds. Well, you can still do elaborate stunt sequences in that, but you just now don't have to worry about comping it all the time. So I think we're always going to need it because there's you just can't CG fake like a good, Spielbergy and Indiana Jones punch. Like you still need that guy to like go into the car and all that kind of stuff. So, and again, like we're talking earlier about the car stuff, like until there's like I said, stunt setting on a driverless car, you're still going to need someone to maneuver that vehicle and get it in the right place and spin it and turn it. And it's also like again, stylistic choice. We're going to want that legacy. We're going to want to see those types of stunts to continually be performed because we're smart. We're audiences. We're like, yeah, that's I know it's good, but like you still know that it's fake. And there's just something about the real impact and the real stuff. So that's
it kind of the way I look at it, like technology, we were making cell phones. We were making them smaller and smaller and smaller. And all of a sudden this critical path happened. And all of a sudden now they've gotten bigger and big. Like the technology changed. You realize, I can watch TV on there. So you got to make them bigger and bigger. CGI became this thing. I remember Toy Story coming out and because you had practical, you had Jurassic Park where they were making these big, animatronic dinosaurs, but then like the CGI a little bit, and then it's like, oh wow, that looks good, and then it was a little bit more, and then it was a little bit more, and then all of a sudden, I think we did hit this critical point where all of a sudden too much was CGI. You look at maybe like The Matrix, that it doesn't really age well when you've got 8,000, Agent Smiths or whatever. And it's like, after a couple of years, you're like, oh, that doesn't look great. So it then kind of, they had that backtrack where they go, okay, let's try to blend. I look at, and I hate to say it, Fast and Furious franchise, where they say, okay, let's try to do practical car flip, but now you just slide into CGI just enough to help flourish the scene. I mean, I think that's like the future, right? That's as realistic as possible with just, CGI smoothing out the edges.
CGI enhancements, but still the core is still a shot. It's still a performance. We forget it's a performance. Like you're a stunt performer is performing. And even if you're in a motion capture suit, you're still doing the thing. So we need that. We need that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh man, this has been an absolute fantastic conversation. One more time for everyone that's out there, Kurt Mattila. It's Stuntman. See it on Disney Plus, July 23rd. I'll be reminding people weekly. And then as we lead up to the release, we'll talk about it again after everybody gets to see it. But Kurt, thank you so much for coming on. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Have you had a good time?
I had a great time. It's always great talking pop culture, comic stuff with a fellow fan. So and thanks for watching the film and the stuff you said about it. Again, it is nice hearing it from a new audience member. And I had a wonderful time here. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. And when we capture what the audience thinks about it, I'll send that to you too, man. I'll send you all the positive reviews, man, and I'll smack all the negative ones if there were any. But all right, guys, we're gonna take a short break. I'm gonna go say bye to Kurt, and we'll wrap up the show shortly after that. We'll be right back.